Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you know when you get new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shoutout Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS the Shoutout Show. Thank you for joining us today. I want to shout out my sisters right up top of the show. That's Sister Eleanor. Miss Eleanor, thank you for coming. And got to shout out Sister Ree, who bought some dynamite. She bought a plate by for you people. You young folks don't know about a plate. A plate is when you can't make it someplace, and either you take the food, they bring the food to you, or you can't stay and you take the food with you, or you were there and you took the food along with you. Now, let's say I still got barbecue chicken left. It was amazing with the mushrooms. I don't know where y'all get that potato salad from with the eggs in it. That's gone. That didn't make it. The baked beans didn't last 10 minutes after you gave it to me, but I will return your Tupperware and your plasticware. Okay, and we're going to give a shout out to Sister Ika all the way from Indonesia. Thank you so much for coming out. So, brothers and sisters, listen, let me get my thoughts together. But first of all, if you're new tuning into the show, we want to welcome you to the Shoutout Show, and we hope that we are able to give you a quality experience that will justify you coming back to the Shoutout Show. And if you're on YouTube, do me a favor. Please do me a favor. Click the like button and click the YouTube subscribe button. We're trying to grow the channel. So hopefully it'll be something that you'll be proud of. And I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, that this will grow. We have some exciting opportunities coming up for the Shoutout Show. So if it's an opportunity for me, it's opportunity for you. There you go. Look at Sister Ree. Everything is homemade. I know everything's homemade, and that's why I ate it at home. So listen, I also have to shout out my brothers and sisters like Sister Eleanor, like Sister Ika, like Sister Ree. They are family to me, and I tell everyone who comes on the show, once you come once or you come twice or you never come again, you are officially Shoutout Show family. You understand what I'm saying? Shoutout Show family. Shoutout Show soldiers, which means that we have a fiduciary responsibility on the show to make sure that you have a good time. And Sister Satana, everybody that's a consultant producer. Without her, believe me, this show will not move as smooth as it does, and the ideas will not be as robust. And she keeps me organized, so I need that. So please keep her in your prayers as well. Wait, okay. My name is Melanie. Okay, all right. I call you Sister Eleanor. Okay, I'm gonna say Miss Melanie. You know, my mom calls you Miss Eleanor, but if it's Melanie, it's Melanie. You got me. Today's topic follows up yesterday's topic, which we talked about the elders, conspiracy to forget the elders. One of the things that has happened in society, to carry on from yesterday, is that we've had a large decline in the interaction of our youth and our elders. In fact, the youth normally, brothers and sisters, confer with parents. And I found that the chain has been broken for a lot of reasons, divorce, crime, poverty, that the genealogical tree has been uprooted in some regards. And so we don't have, I want to say, the connectivity, if you will. We don't have what I say, the space, the safe space for young and old to get together and talk about things. So one of the things that's happened is that we've developed, brothers and sisters, a prison industrial complex. And what I want to move away from is this industrial prison complex, because we're talking about systematic racism these days. We're talking about a whole lot of issues about institutional racism. We're not talking about what it leads to. One of the things that it leads to is what we're going to talk about today is the prison probation system. And I'll try to be very, very specific and not just say prison system, but the probation system, which continually keeps our young men and our young women in a process of being, I want to say not free, but not mobile, not in a situation to access mobility that can lift them out of particular situations. Many of you know that I perform in the prisons. I try and put money on brothers' books, things like that. I have friends who are doing large time. And that's not the point that I want to bring. The point is, whatever the crime is they did, the punishment or the punishment or rehabilitation, one level is supposed to happen in prison. Another one happens between them and their Lord, whatever that is. And I'm saying that because we have gotten into a situation whereby the prison system and the probation system have now become unilateral. They have a certain level of equity in society, and that equity does not carry over to the inmates. It doesn't carry over to the parolees. It doesn't carry over to those on probation. And it's created a new culture. My point. Recently, some of you brothers and sisters probably will remember a young man in Atlanta who was killed by police at a Burger King. They claimed he was drunk and he took a taser and things like that. And it was a big brouhaha. He was murdered. Call it what it is. He was murdered. You can follow the updates, if you will. You can update yourself on Google and all those things. But here's the thing I don't want you to miss. There's an interview of this young man talking about leaving prison, but being a prisoner of the probation system. Now, let me say that again. He left prison, did his time, but he found that he was a prisoner of the probation system. And that probation system is not just endemic to him, it's endemic to a lot of people coming around, contributing to high levels and high rates of recidivism. When I say recidivism, what I'm saying is guys who are leaving prison and coming right back. Leaving prison and coming right back. Now, a lot of people say, oh, these gentlemen can't survive in society, they're not rehabilitated, they should not be. Well, I'm going to tell you some of the things that happen when you go to prison. I've never been in prison, okay? I haven't been in prison. But the stories have a certain continuity to them. They have a certain tone to them. So if you listen to what I'm about to tell you, as it was told to me, you will understand that it's almost tougher on the outside to stay on the outside than to survive on the inside. Case in point. When a person comes out of prison, they have to pay for their time in prison. They owe a certain amount of money back to the state or the federal facility for their time in prison. That happens. Court costs, accrued court costs, all of that stuff that happened when you went in, it's waiting for you when you get out. That's number one. Number two is, no one wants to hire a fresh felon. It doesn't matter what you did, when you did it. The stigma in society is that A, you can't be trusted, B, you're dangerous, and C, you are not, hear what I'm saying, you're not worthy of a second chance or a second opportunity. Now, why am I saying this? Because we see these people and we look the other way. We see these people and we say, oh, that's tough, and they look the other way. One of my dopest friends, one of my major friends, brothers and sisters, was a brother named Ahmad Bilal. Ahmad and I met in 1997. No, I'm sorry, 1998. He had just gotten out of state in Las Vegas, in Nevada. He had done 8.5 on a 10-year bid. When you do federal time, you have to do 85% of the sentence. That's mandatory. Mandatory. So it doesn't matter if the crime changes, the law changes, you're going to do 85% of a sentence mandatory. When he came out, it was like he was in a time warp. Things had moved on from when he had gone on. Technology had moved on, jobs had moved on, accessibility had moved on, opportunities had moved on. Hell, his whole family had moved on. And what he was left with was two things. Number one, to find himself and rediscover himself in this new platform, in this new plane, in this new era of a society that didn't care for him when he went in and definitely didn't care for him when he came out. The thing that I loved about Ahmad was that he still perceived opportunity. He still saw the bright side of the coin, if you will. He still saw optimism in his opportunities. The problem is, so many things that he wanted to do, he couldn't do. So many things that were offered to him, he couldn't take advantage of. Good opportunities, good wages. Because he was still a prisoner after he left the prison. He was still an inmate after he left the prison. He moved from prison, hear what I'm saying? He moved from being a prisoner in prison to being a prisoner in the probation system. And the probation system, brothers and sisters, is a business. It is built upon securing understanding about the welfare, the potential, hear what I'm saying? The welfare, the potential, and of course, the inappropriateness of inmates once they get out in free society. Look at some of the things they have to go through. You can't be around other people who are criminals, meaning that somebody could be out of prison for 20 years, but because they have a record, you can't be around that person. There are families that can't get together because cousin over here did time and cousin over here did time, and the probation people roll in, they're all going to go back to jail. And let me tell you something about this whole impending cloud of doom about going to jail. Not even jail, brothers and sisters, going back to prison. I can't fathom it. I can't really sit here and tell you what it is, but let me frame what I think it is through my brother's eyes, Ahmad. It meant that at any point in time, your probation officer, depending on what kind of day they're having, could violate you, can start you on a process going down the road where you'll wind up back in prison. And it has nothing to do, brothers and sisters, nothing to do about, for lack of a better word, what your status is, what your aspirations are, what your plan is. It doesn't matter. Your plan is that you're going to be on probation. They call it being on paper. You're going to be on paper until you're off of paper. I used to take Ahmad with me on some of the tours we did back in the early 2000s. And it was amazing the amount of paperwork he had to go through just to go to Northern California. The drug test, the checking in with the probation officer, the jobs, the whole situation is set up in some regards to make sure that you're not successful. And it's a reminder, a constant reminder that you could be going back any point in time. Let me explain to you where the idea of probation came from. So bear with me. During the time of slavery, when slavery ended, to make sure that there was a workforce or access to free labor, they developed vagrancy laws. Now, the vagrancy laws basically said that if you were caught out, if you were a black slave, ex-slave, and you were caught out without having a job, then you were no longer free. You were considered property of the state. And as property of the state, they could do whatever they wanted to you. And that meant going back to prison and having you work on these work camps on bogus charges and things like that. What it really, really spoke to, brothers and sisters, is that even then, at the end of slavery, there was a plan to make sure that they were enslaved. It was the original, for lack of a better word, probation industry. If you always talk about, a lot of us talk about the prison industrial complex and how it brings our folks in, it does. The idea that you can have private prisons should let you know that something's going on. Having private prisons meant that the prisons, the state and federal places were already filled up. I'm going to open another prison, and you're going to make sure that you're going to provide me with the product to make sure that my prisons for lack of a better word, stay full, and I continue to make money under this process. The thing that we have to understand, if I can make this point clearly and I can emphasize it with a sense of urgency, is that it never went away. It never went away. Incarceration is a big business. Let me correct myself. Incarceration is a profitable business. And the bodies that you bring into the prison, once you're there, nobody cares. People don't worry. The idea of having to call home and call through a service in the system, you know who it's really expensive for when the inmates are locked up? The families. The families who have to pay exorbitant rates for phone calls, exorbitant rates for access to internet. You know, you have to pay exorbitant rates for these guys to go to the commissary and get food, basic things that should be provided by the state. We're talking soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, clean socks, clean underwear. A lot of you guys don't understand the inmate that comes in, fresh fish, if you will, fresh fish, when they come in, they got what the state has, and then they have to worry about providing those things, those small comfort creature comforts of home, and have to be calling home to a family that's probably already strapped from legal fees, from fines, and all those type of things, outside of the fact that it may be that person that's in prison who's the main breadwinner. I'm not talking about how they made their bread, but they were the main breadwinner. They were the main financial support. And a couple years ago, there was a fundamental shift. So pay attention. There was a fundamental shift that moved these private prisons, these people that provided private prisons, and they are some of the top Fortune 500 companies. McDonnell Douglas, the defense contractor, owns a bunch of prisons, stock in prisons. They made the move, brothers and sisters, from prison, once it became less and less profitable, to probation, monitoring services, surveillance services, which to me is an even difficult and even more dangerous idea, that now you're in the monitoring business. People go, preacher, how is that? Well, walk outside your door if the sun is out. Look around your neighborhood. Look around your neighborhood. Maybe take a walk. How many of the homes that you see have cameras on them? How many of the homes that you see have cameras, spotlights? How many of you can go on your phone and turn on the air conditioning in your house from an app on your iPhone or Android? How many of you can check who's around your house from your phone? Think about that. How many of you can turn on the lights, turn on the AC from an app on your phone? Well, if you can do that, I want you to understand that it came from someplace. There were people before you who came up with those devices and that type of technology. And those devices and that technology are the things that have been imprisoning our brothers who come out of prison over and over and over again. It's not just the surveillance, brothers and sisters. It is conceptually that we are willing, for lack of a better word, to re-traumatize the person who's just been released from prison. Re-traumatize our returning citizens. Re-traumatize those who are going through the reentry process to make sure that over their back, whatever it is that you're doing or you're trying to do, the baseline is if you don't pull it off successfully the way I want you to pull it off and follow all these guidelines, then you will go back to prison. I literally shuddered one time early on, and you guys may remember this, and you may not remember it, but there was a case in Long Beach, California. You can look it up. But there was a case in Long Beach, California, where they had a man who was on trial for his life. Yes, he was black. He didn't want counsel because he felt like counsel was ineffective, but the judge made him keep his lawyer. And the man, rightfully or wrongly, but if you're battling for your life, I would say rightly, he argued with the judge so much, that they had him strapped to a device whereby if he talked too much and the judge felt like he was out of order, she could shock him. This is years ago. But she could shock him. And every time he said something, and she didn't like what he said, and it was clearly up to the discretion of the judge. This woman shocked the man so much that he damn near caught fire in court. And while I thought of it as a comedian, I was younger then, but as a comedian, I said, that has to be a funny thing, just watching it, the visual of it. And then it caught my heart and it caught my spirit. I said, but that's another human being. Somehow, some way in this courtroom, they've managed to make sure that if he had something worth saying, worth value, worth importance, that's relevant, this judge, with a flick of a switch, and could end it. And she could change his old train of thought by shocking him. And nobody said anything. So it was never a surprise to me when they came out with surveillance systems for brothers that are just coming out of prison. Because when you want to lock somebody up, you don't really want to put a whole lot of emphasis and time trying to find out where they are. No, you keep them under surveillance. One of the saddest things you could ever see is a brother with an ankle bracelet on. Ankle monitor is what they call it. And you see, the people who are running the prisons and doing such a bad job in the prisons and making sure oppression stayed at an all-time high, all of a sudden they found this, what's the word? A compassion to help our brothers and sisters leaving the prison, re-entering society. And the best that they could do to make sure that it would happen appropriately is put another level of surveillance over them, these monitoring systems. And the killer part is, now you have monitoring systems when you come into prison, but you also have monitoring systems when you come out of the prison. There's nothing crazier than having to go through traffic, speeding at a high rate of speed, driving recklessly, to make sure this brother can be home to receive the call from the probation monitoring services to make sure that he is where he's supposed to be in the house. Now, there's a psychological piece to this too. The psychological piece is to maintain an idea that you do not own your life. It's also, for lack of a better word, it's also that space that your children see. That this ankle bracelet reminds your children that you did something in the past, but that ankle bracelet doesn't tell them anything about how you redeemed yourself. If religious, how you repented. It doesn't say anything about that. It doesn't say how you redeemed yourself. It says that somewhere, somehow you failed in society, and we're going to give you a constant reminder. And not only is the inmate, our re-entering citizen, constantly reminded, so are his employees. So are his potential employees. I said employees. I mean his employers, his family, the police. You say when some of these people, brothers and sisters, when you look around, George Floyd, the Burger King guy, a whole host of people, what did they have in common? A lot of them had spent time on probation. And that time being spent on probation, for lack of a better word, has given pause for the police to treat them any old way. Any old way. So if you're driving down the street and you might have a parking ticket or something like that, there are people who've been killed over a driver's license that was suspended, a warrant that was issued, but it wasn't a warrant that they were violent. It was a warrant, maybe you missed a court case, not worth that. Brother Muhammad Mahaman Jr. in Arizona was killed over a warrant, and the warrant wasn't even a real warrant. They could have let him walk and made sure he went to prison. Not went to prison, but just show up for court. He didn't even know he had it. This guy wound up dead. Do you see what I'm saying? Dead. And the system that surrounds us is a system that chokes us out. It's a system that makes sure that, for lack of a better word, we're always going to feel like, even when we're out, we're being hunted. And I say we. And the reason I say we, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Rubina. The reason I say we is because many of us become so enamored with Black Lives Matter and this and that and slogans and da-da-da-da, that the spotlight is not duly shared on those who are truly suffering oppression. I have a friend of mine, his name is Bilal Decker. Now, Bilal, Bilal, when he went to prison, I told him, I said, boy, you're going to go to prison. I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but I know the sound coming out of your mouth, it says 2 to 6. And he wound up going to prison. And Bilal was a young man. Let me state that. Bilal was a young man. He was already in the prison system by the time he was 19, 20 years old. He's currently locked up in parts unknown in Mississippi. Every once in a while, I'll give a call for him. They have illegal cell phones, but I'll get a call from him and he'll ask for me to put something on his book. The last time he called me, he was a little desperate. He started telling me about COVID in prison, how there weren't any masks, nobody knew about PPE, and there was definitely no social distancing. And his story was not unique. In prisons across the country, our brothers and sisters are being infected and reinfected with COVID over and over and over and over again. And I said to myself, wow, as much as I want to help him, I can't help him. As much as I would like to go to the prison and perform or bring some type of joy or relief, I can't do it. And I said, wow, even when he gets out, he's going to look at least 1 to 2 years under a probation system that's designed for him to fail. It's absolutely designed for him to fail. And what you guys haven't heard me say is they didn't deserve to be incarcerated. People do crimes, okay? Call that right. Let's call that right here. Thank you, sister. People do crimes. People commit crimes. That's what the laws are for. And you leave the laws to the side. You know right and wrong. You know right and wrong. You know when it's right and you know when it's wrong. So that's to the side. What I'm speaking to is a basic premise or basic level of being able to have some level of compassion and mercy that allows a modicum for these people to come out of prison. And I say these people for our people, our brothers and sisters, and have a space, just a small space, against the odds to be successful. That's not happening now. The evil that was in the prison system has now moved to the probation system. And the probation system has become more and more and more and more restrictive. There's a TV show you should watch on TBS. The name of that show is called The Last OG. It stars Tracy Morgan. The premise of the show is Tracy's character, Trey, gets caught on a drug bust in Brooklyn back in, I don't know, the early 90s or something like late 80s. And he comes back to Brooklyn and Brooklyn has changed. Thus, he's called the old OG. Well, not the old OG, but the last OG. And for the last 3 years, it's interactive to watch that show. A friend of mine is now the showrunner for that show. It means he hires all the writers and things like that. And it was interesting when he asked me to help him out during his interview. He asked me about, here's the thing. And I said, I had never seen an episode of The Last OG. He said, you haven't? I said, no. I said, is he returning back to society? He said, yeah. I said, I know his story. And I was legitimately able to run down almost every aspect of the highs and lows and the hurdles and the obstacles that he's going to have to deal with. And it's nice to be correct, even though it's a comedy, a dramedy, if you will. It hurt because I was correct. It hurt because I understood the process. I understood the process of where he was going to the point where when you had a story arc, I could tell you what the ups and downs were. Trying to get your family back, trying to get a job, trying to get a place to stay, trying to get a girlfriend, dealing with old ex-gangsters, old ex-friends, and probation and things like that. In fact, the first season dealt with him being in a halfway house. Thank you, Reed. But the point is, the tough part about The Last OG, and the thing I want to close on, is that you still got to cheer for him. Whatever it is that's going on, you still got to cheer for him. And I'm saying you got to cheer for him because that love and support is not coming from the probation system. The probation system cheers the other way. We clap for you to go back to prison because that feeds the system. That makes us more money. We're going to charge your family for those phone calls. Oh, you want socks from the commissary? That's going to cost too. And it reminds us over and over and over again that people in cycles of pain and misery and oppression and depression. So, yeah, I'm going to ask everybody to put a spotlight on the prison probation industry. And let's begin to talk about that. Let's begin to speak on some of those things that are out there that really, really handicap progress. All right, everybody? So listen, that's my time. I totally appreciate you hanging out with me. Sisters, Miss Eleanor, Ravina, Ika, Sultana, so many people, listen, have conversations with people about this system that we just talked about, because as much time as I spend on it, it'll be a dead issue by tomorrow. And we won't remember, just like we don't remember our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated. That's my word. You guys been great. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.